Judges Corner is brought to you by CoolStuffInc.com, the best online retailer for Magic the Gathering singles and sealed product, and gatheringmagic.com, your place to explore the game. Now it's time for Judges Corner.
Hey everyone, thanks for watching. Today we're going to be talking about clone and copy effects. So I thought we could start things off by taking a look at exactly what a clone is. Clones are cards like Clever Impersonator, Sculpting Steel, or even Clone itself. These kinds of cards become a copy of something laying around upon resolution, and don't usually target. They pick up the characteristics of the card they copied, which are the name, mana cost, color indicator, card type, subtype, supertype, rules text, power, toughness, and/or loyalty. A few things not copied would include counters on an object, a pump from a previously played giant growth, or abilities that were added or removed from objects. For example, if you played a clone copying an animated treetop village, you would end up with a tapped, unanimated, colorless treetop village with no current power or toughness. The reason for this is because the effect generated by the land alters the characteristics of the card, but we only copy the printed characteristics, and not those added through some spell or ability. You would wind up with a tapped treetop village for your clone, which you could then later animate just like you would with a regular treetop village. However, if you copy a clone that is currently a copy of something else, you'll get a new clone as a copy of whatever the previous clone had copied, but you'll also pick up any modifications that clone made. For example, if you played a Phyrexian Metamorph to copy a phantasmal image that had also previously copied a Tarmogoyf, that Phyrexian Metamorph would become a copy of a Tarmogoyf with the card type artifact from the Phyrexian Metamorph, and it also will have picked up the Illusion's sacrifice trigger. Typical clones will enter the battlefield already as a copy of whatever they had selected, unless the clone becomes a copy of something else while actually on the battlefield, like with Artist in a Forms. If the card you're copying has any replacement effects that modify how it enters play, like receiving a modular counter from an Arcbound Ravager, those replacement effects will still happen. This is because replacement effects have an order in which they're applied, with self-replacement effects occurring first, like with a Remand, then control-altering replacement effects occurring second, like with Gather Specimens, then clone-related replacement effects occurring third, and finally, you'll apply all other replacement effects that are still applicable. So, copying a creature with an Enter the Battlefield triggered ability, like Primeval Titan, will still trigger, and choices made as the creature would enter the battlefield, like with Adaptive Automaton's creature type, will still occur, allowing you to pick something entirely different than the original creature type. There are also cards that copy nonpermanents, like Reverberate, Strionic Resonator, or Isochron Scepter. Reverberate and Scepter are actually very different from one another, as Reverberate copies but doesn't cast the copy, so it won't count towards Storm or Prowess. It also locks in the exact same modes, choices, targets, as well as values like X from the original spell, unless the copying card says that you can change any of that. In this case, Reverberate lets us choose new targets. Isochron Scepter casts the copy of the spell, so we will get our prowess triggers in that case. But no mana was spent to cast the spell, so we can't pump any mana into spells with values of X. So those values will remain at 0. We can select all of our modes or targets because we're casting the spell, and we'll be following the normal steps involved in doing so. With Strionic Resonator, the source of the triggered ability is the original source, which matters if you copied a Daxos triggered ability. That would mean that the copy of the trigger would exile a card, and the card would be linked to Daxos instead of the Strionic Resonator, since Daxos is the original source. Let's talk about manifesting clones. Say, if you were to take a clone and manifest it from your library face down onto the battlefield, if you were to flip it face up, you probably wouldn't clone anything. This is because most clones state that when they enter the battlefield as a copy of something else, but this particular clone is already on the battlefield. So you wouldn't apply that replacement effect when you turned it face up, and unfortunately, most clones are 0/0, so it probably is going to die. The last thing I want to mention is that if you were to copy something with a characteristic defining ability, and the copy effect itself modified that characteristic, the copy's characteristics would override the original card's characteristic defining ability. So, for example, if you played a Quicksilver Gargantuan copying a Tarmogoyf, the Gargantuan Goyf would be a 7/7, and you would not use the characteristic defining ability that we find on Tarmogoyf to determine the power and toughness. Well, that's it for our episode on clones. If you have any questions about this episode or any other rules-related questions in general, you can always send us an email at judgescorner@gatheringmagic.com or leave a comment below and myself or somebody else will be happy to get back to you. If you like this video, we'd really appreciate it and like it if you gave us a like. And if you'd like, you can also subscribe to Gathering Magic to get the latest content and information based on magic rules and other related videos in the future. Until next time, make sure to shuffle thoroughly, play at a reasonable pace, and have fun.